The first time I used my power, it replaced my left eye. The second time, it took 3 of my fingers. By the 5th, my friends had stopped asking whether I was still human. They only wanted to know how many more pieces I could afford to lose. My name is Saran Vale, and before the Nexus chose me, I was the weakest member of the most successful raiding party in Vera. That was not an opinion. The Nexus measured everything. Strength, speed, focus, mana capacity, reaction time, even the probability that someone would survive their next major encounter. My probability was 11%. People called me Lucky 11 because I kept surviving anyway. Our party leader, Kale, claimed that was why he kept me around. He said every team needed someone who could notice what stronger players overlooked. What he meant was that every team needed someone expendable enough to test traps. I carried supplies. I marked routes. I triggered suspicious doors while everyone else stood 20 paces behind me. Then we found the hollow archive. It appeared beneath the ruins of an abandoned Nexus city, hidden behind a staircase that only existed when no one looked directly at it. The deeper we descended, the less the world behaved like a world. Walls breathed in slow, silent patterns. Written symbols crawled away from our lantern light. Every few minutes, I heard someone whispering my name from inside my own inventory. Kale called it environmental flavor. Myra, our healer, called it a warning. We continued anyway. At the archive's center stood a black door surrounded by 11 empty stone frames. The door had no handle. It had an eye. The moment I stepped near it, the eye opened and looked directly at me. A message appeared across my vision. Null compatibility detected. Vessel incomplete. Replacement protocol available. Kale could not see the message. None of them could. He only saw the door react to me, and that was enough. He ordered me forward. I asked what would happen if I refused. He smiled and reminded me that my share of the expedition depended on completing my assigned role. So I touched the door. Something cold passed through my left eye. There was no pain. That frightened me more than pain would have. For one impossible second, I could see 2 versions of the archive at once. The first was the ruin around us. The second was a network of silver pathways stretching through the walls, the floor, and the people standing behind me. I saw mana moving through Myra's hands. I saw tension collecting in Kale's sword arm. I saw the hidden mechanism beneath the door. Then my left eye went dark. When sight returned, the world looked sharper. Too sharp. Every object had a faint outline. Every person carried strings of shifting symbols beneath their skin. My reflection appeared in the black door. My left eye was no longer brown. It had become a rotating silver ring surrounding a point of perfect darkness. Myra stepped toward me. Kale grabbed her shoulder and pulled her back. He did not ask whether I was all right. He asked what I could see. I told him there was a release seal beneath the 3rd stone frame. Kale pressed it. The door opened. That was the first replacement. Beyond the door waited a corridor filled with creatures made from abandoned player data. They wore fragments of armor from forgotten guilds. Their faces changed every time they moved. Some begged us for help in voices copied from dead adventurers. Kale ordered us to push through. We fought for 12 minutes. It felt like hours. My new eye showed me where each creature would move before it moved, but my body was too slow to take advantage of what I saw. When one of them slipped past our defender and lunged for Myra, I reached out without thinking. A second message appeared. Functional deficiency detected. Manual response below survival threshold. Replace 3 digits to enable vector grasp. I should have refused. Instead, I accepted. My thumb, index finger, and middle finger went numb. Dark silver lines spread over them like cracks in glass. The flesh faded beneath a smooth metallic surface, leaving 3 jointed constructs that moved faster than thought. I caught the creature by the throat. Not with strength. With control. My new fingers found invisible lines inside its body and pulled. The creature collapsed into harmless fragments of light. Everyone stared at my hand. Then Kale laughed. He called it an upgrade. That was the moment I should have understood. They were not worried about what the Nexus was doing to me. They were excited to see what it could turn me into. We cleared the corridor. At the next chamber, the archive locked us inside and began draining oxygen from the room. The exit required someone to hold 2 mechanisms at once, but they were separated by 20 feet. Kale looked at me before the system message even appeared. He knew. We all knew. Structural limitation detected. Replace left forearm to enable thread extension. Myra told me not to do it. Kale told me we had 30 seconds. I asked whether anyone had another plan. No one answered. So I accepted. My left arm became cold from the elbow down. The skin did not tear or fall away. It simply lost its color, then its texture, then its humanity. A lattice of black metal formed beneath a translucent silver shell. Threads of pale energy unspooled from my palm and crossed the chamber. I held both mechanisms. The door opened with 4 seconds remaining. Kale slapped my shoulder and told me I had saved everyone. Myra could not look at my arm. I wanted to tell her it was still me. But when I flexed my new hand, I felt each finger from a distance, like I was controlling a tool rather than part of my body. The replacements continued. A section of my spine so I could survive a fall. Part of my inner ear so I could detect dimensional shifts. A strip of skin across my chest so I could absorb a curse meant for Kale. Each change made me stronger. Each change made the next one easier to accept. That was the true horror of it. Not that the Nexus was stealing my body. That it kept proving my body had been holding me back. By the time we reached the final vault, my survival probability had risen from 11% to 78%. Kale's had fallen to 43%. He saw the numbers reflected in my silver eye. If this story has you listening this far, subscribe to Azure Inkblade so the next chapter finds you instead of getting buried. It helps us keep making more of these every week. Now, back to the chapter. From then on, he stopped walking in front of me. The final vault contained no treasure. Only a suspended sphere filled with moving darkness. Inside it floated a human-shaped outline. The archive identified it as the first empty, a prototype vessel designed to cross between disconnected Nexus realms. Kale had spent years searching for something like it. A body that could ignore class restrictions. A body that could enter sealed regions. A body that could carry power between worlds. The sphere would not open for him. It opened for me. A final message appeared. Vessel compatibility, 94%. Current identity obstructs total integration. Replace remaining organic structure? For the first time, the Nexus was not asking for a piece. It was asking for everything. I stepped back. Kale stepped forward. He asked what the message said. I lied and told him the interface was corrupted. His expression changed. Not much. Just enough for my new eye to detect the tightening muscles around his mouth and the mana gathering in his sword arm. He ordered Myra and our defender to restrain me. Neither moved. Kale drew his blade. He told them I was no longer Sauron. He said the archive had replaced too much. He said whatever stood before them was a Nexus construct wearing their friends' memories. Then he said killing me would be mercy. Myra asked why his sword was pointed at the sphere instead of my heart. Kale attacked before I could answer. His blade struck my replaced arm. The impact sent me across the vault. While I fell, he reached into the sphere. The archive rejected him. Darkness climbed his arm, not as a replacement, but as a restraint. He screamed for me to help him. The system gave me a choice. I could release him by surrendering the last organic parts of my body. Or I could let the archive consume his access signature, permanently sealing him outside every high-tier Nexus gate. He would live. But everything he had built his life around would be gone. Myra looked at me and asked what I was going to do. Kale had used me as a key. He had pushed me into every trap. He had watched the Nexus replace me piece by piece and called it progress. Now saving him would cost the only parts of myself I still recognized. Would refusing make me a monster? Or had I already sacrificed enough for someone who never planned to sacrifice anything for me? I looked at Kale. Then I rejected the replacement. The archive took his access. The darkness released him. He collapsed on the floor, alive and unchanged, but every Nexus symbol on his armor had gone dark. He tried to activate a return portal. Nothing happened. He tried to open his inventory. Nothing. For the first time since I had known him, Kale was powerless. He called me selfish. Maybe he was right. I still walked away. The vault began collapsing as the first empty awakened inside its sphere. We had less than a minute to escape. Kale could no longer use movement skills, portals, or system-assisted combat. Myra wanted to carry him. Our defender said doing so would slow all of us enough to die. Kale looked at me. He expected revenge. Instead, I extended the silver threads from my arm and wrapped them around his waist. I dragged him with us. Not because he deserved it. Because I refused to let him decide what I had become. The archive broke apart behind us. Creatures poured from the walls. The staircase folded into impossible angles. Whole sections of the ruin vanished before our feet touched them. My replacements moved together. My eye mapped the escape route. My spine absorbed impacts that should have broken me. My altered inner ear heard reality bending before each corridor shifted. My silver fingers pulled weaknesses from the creatures chasing us. For the first time, I did not feel like a weak man carrying foreign parts. I felt like every sacrifice had become a language. And I was finally learning how to speak it. We reached the surface seconds before the archive sealed itself. Kale lay in the grass, breathing hard. He asked whether I expected gratitude. I told him no. I expected him to remember that the thing he called inhuman had chosen to save him. Then I removed myself from the party. The Nexus recalculated my status. Class, unregistered. Body integrity, 41% organic. Vessel status, incomplete. Survival probability, unknown. A new ability appeared beneath the warning. Replacement authority. Until that moment, I had assumed the archive chose what parts of me changed. I was wrong. It had been teaching me. I focused on my original right hand. A menu opened, showing hundreds of possible forms. Blades. Keys. Shields. Tools capable of touching the hidden structure beneath reality. I selected none of them. Instead, I searched for restoration. The Nexus hesitated. Then it showed me a path. My missing pieces were not destroyed. They had been stored somewhere beyond the known network, inside a region marked with a symbol shaped like an open door. I could reclaim them. Or I could continue replacing myself until I became powerful enough to cross worlds. Maybe there was a third option. Maybe I could decide what deserved to remain human and what humanity was allowed to become. Myra chose to leave with me. Our defender did too. Kale stayed behind, staring at the dead symbols on his armor. I never learned whether he hated me for taking his power or hated himself for showing me how little power had made him worth. Weeks later, we reached the edge of the mapped Nexus. My silver eye found a pathway no ordinary player could see. It stretched beyond the sky, beyond the servers, beyond every realm we believed existed. At its end stood a door identical to the one in the hollow archive. This one had no eye. It had a handprint. My handprint. When I pressed my altered fingers against it, something pressed back from the other side. Not a monster. Not a construct. A person. The system displayed one final message. Origin vessel detected. Contact initiated. And somewhere beyond the Nexus, a human hand reached for the first door. Was I becoming less human every time I changed, or was I finally gaining the power to choose what being human meant? For more stories from the Eternal Nexus universe, read Azure Inkblade on Royal Road and follow the series on YouTube.